Hi, this is Luke for Basic Drum Co. I'm going to go over the controls on the Back to School 1.0 kit. This is a simple controller, but it has a lot of potential for different sounds because of the way things were recorded. This entire set was recorded close mic'd, so every instrument in the kit had a close mic on it, in some cases two. And then there was a pair of overheads picking up the entire kit. And then there was a series of room microphones out in the recording space to pick up the entire kit. Now, everything has been already processed, EQ'd, and compressed. This is not a neutral kit that's sort of part of the way there and then you can do things to it. This is a kit of drums that's finished, and it sounds like it belongs in a mix, and that's our philosophy on making this. So I'm going to go over the controls really quickly. The main panel here is simply a mixer, and I have control of the different drums. I have a control for the kick, the snare, for both tom-toms, the cymbals, which are controlling the hi-hat and the ride, the overheads, which are picking up your crash cymbals. There are two of those. And then there's the room, which is the recording space and the reverberant sound of the drums bouncing around the room. So on the kick, we have controls for the direct mic, for the overhead leakage, and for what goes into the room and pan, so you can place it in the stereo spectrum. And this is fairly similar to every control on this kit, is you have the direct, the overhead, and the room. So this gives you a lot of versatility to get a lot of different sounds. Like this is the kick, that's just the close mic. This is just the bleed, the overheads. And this is just the room. And just by balancing these different controls out, I can make kicks that sound very realistic, or like they were recorded back in the 70s in a very dry space, or I can make things that are, right off some kind of ridiculous record from the 80s. So on the snare, I have those same controls, except I also have control of a microphone on the top and a microphone on the bottom. And the bottom mic, obviously, is going to be picking up the sound of the snares, and the top is picking up the initial hit. And by blending those, I can get a lot of different snare sounds, from something realistic like this to something kind of wacky, like kind of ridiculous 80s sound again. On the toms, I have a rack tom and a floor tom, and in addition to controlling their direct feeds, their direct mics, I can control the overhead bleed and what feeds into the room, and then I have panning control for the two toms. So I can reverse my pan, or I can make it more realistic. That would probably be how the pan would look to a drummer, and if you were in the audience, the pan would be something like that, depending on how big you want your record to seem. And I have control over all of those drums, and they sound great. Cymbals, I have control of the hi-hat and ride levels and the hi-hat and ride pan. And I can control, again, how much feeds into the overheads and how much feeds into the room. Now the overheads, I have control over the crashes and their volumes, and I have control of their pan, and again, the overheads in the room. So you can think of this overhead thing. These are really both cymbal channels, but this is the rhythm keeping cymbal channels, and this is the accent cymbal channels. And my last thing is the room, which has no controls other than this volume. So by varying these things, I can get a lot of different drum sounds. So if you want to hear some of the presets we've made, click over on this symbol. Now you have presets here, and you can save your own presets. And again, these are very versatile presets. We can go from things that are there's a delay because of the way I'm recording this, so I can't play the drums decently. And there's a sound that would wind up on a Dan Corniff record. Things that are tight, and things that are also full of room. So some really useful presets there. Now you can't change the MIDI numbers, your MIDI note numbers on this kit. So these are your MIDI note numbers. So on your sequencer, the kick is going to be on C1. The ride bell is on F3. And that's where they're going to wind up on both your keyboard and also when they're put down into your sequencer. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the sample folder location. Your sample folder is where all the samples for this drum kit are stored. Now, that can be in a couple of different locations. It can really basically be anywhere you want to place it on your setup. Some people have like a spot on their hard drive where they put all of their resources, all of their drum kits, all of their virtual instruments. Other people just put them, samples and such, just with the rest of their music. So if they're working on client projects, they have a folder full of just that stuff. Some people put them on separate hard drives. It doesn't really matter where you put them. What matters is you can navigate to them to load them into the sampler. So clicking on this brings up a dialog box that lets you navigate to where you want to put your samples and load them into the sampler. And that's about it. That's your bypass, which I don't think you're going to want to be doing very much because these things sound so excellent. If you have any questions, you can find us on Facebook and you can get in touch with us through our website. We'd love to help you out. And thank you very much for getting yourself some Back to School 1.0 drums. We hope you're really happy with them and we hope you make some great music.